Joining us now on 𝙍𝙍𝙍𝙈 is Landis Alexander, Jaire Alexander's father. We appreciate you joining us here on ESPN Wisconsin. First and foremost, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. And yourself?
Doing well. Thank you for taking some time to join us. You know, this has been a really interesting journey from the time Jaire has been drafted with the Green Bay Packers, becoming an All-Pro, and obviously no one roots for injuries. It's been part of his journey. I would love to hear from you. I saw your tweet about the non-guaranteed money offered by the Packers. Do you have any sense as to why they would not offer any guarantees after all the time that they spent? And there was we're going to reopen this to reconciliation, and this is where we got to. Was there ever any conversation that moved things forward with the Green Bay Packers?
Well, I mean, they sent over a proposal, and it was like a non-proposal. It's like somebody doing a non-apology or something like that, because basically it was structured with roster bonuses and things like that. And the way the structure of it was more of the problem than the money, because the money didn't really matter. We understand business. We understand that he's been injured, and we also understood that $17 million was we know why they would question that, being as he's had a few injuries in the last few years. So I got that part, but to not have any guarantees in there was where we had the issue with. So it wasn't actually the dollar amount; it was no guaranteed money, because it was kind of like if he plays every game that season, he probably could have stood to make $6 million, but he's not played every game in the season since he's been in the NFL. And that's not even, maybe he missed a game or two or whatever. But if he did that this year, then it would have been less than that amount. So I think it was 4.3 million base or something like that. I posted that on Twitter as well. But I think their thought process was they had lost something or taken a loss because he hadn't played. And I get that part too. But, it's kind of insulting to come to a two-time All-Pro, somebody who gave blood, sweat, and tears to you, and then to not have any guarantees. We knew the $17 million was going to be less than that. I only replied to people saying that he refused to take a pay cut, because that just was not the truth.
So it sounds like he took less money as a base salary for Baltimore, though, and I know there's incentives that are more attainable for him. And so it just came down to the fact that y'all felt like the incentives weren't there. If the Green Bay Packers offered a contract comparable with what the Ravens contract was offered, would he still be a Packer today?
Yes.
Wow. Because I think as a show, I know we look at that and say, for what Jaire is on the field and how high he still plays when he's out there, that's a great deal for the Baltimore Ravens. Did you ever feel like the Packers genuinely wanted Jaire back in 2025, or was the last stage contract negotiations more of just trying to save face in a way for the Green Bay Packers?
Well, to answer that question, I believe that because of the way the contract was structured, they were setting it up for him to sign that contract as the bare bones with no incentives, because it makes it more attractive to trade him with that contract versus what he had. Like, you put him on this contract, and then you can trade him for little or nothing, and the team that's trading would basically get the steal, and you'd be off of that contract and so on and so forth. So I think that was only structured that way in order to trade him. I don't think he actually plays for the Packers, even if he signed that contract.
And real quick, yeah, and real quick, going back to the trade, I know that Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Packers, said initially that was the idea, that when you have someone like Jaire, and if he's not in the future plans of the Green Bay Packers, you want something back for that kind of asset. Can you take me through what that journey was like? Because it seemed like that was the focus. Was there ever a legitimate trade on the table that the Packers and another team were close to finalizing for Jaire?
I think the Bills. I would say, if there was any team, I would say I think the Bills were it.
Okay. And so
yes, as Landis Alexander joins us here on 𝙍𝙍𝙍𝙍𝙍 across ESPN Wisconsin, Jaire's father, bringing a lot of great info and shedding light to conversations from Jaire's perspective of how negotiations went. I guess my biggest question then is, once there were no initial guarantees on the proposal, Was that it, or did you ask for a potential to make something a little bit more achievable so he could stay in Green Bay, where it seemed like many of his teammates respect and wanted Jaire back?
Yeah, so once they sent that, it was like kind of like a big wow. Like I can't believe there's no, because we looked at I guess Preston Smith's contract when he had the I think it was $17 million, and they dropped him to 10 and gave him the signing bonus and all of that type of thing. We were looking at something like that. We would have probably $10 million. It would have been no question him staying. $8 million would have been no question. But even with the 6 would have been better had there been more of a say if there was any guarantee in there whatsoever.
Were you?
There were. I don't think people can't wrap their heads around. There were a bunch of roster bonuses, and the way that looks is like you're setting yourself up for, if he plays this long, we'll keep him until this, or somebody says that they want him, or it just didn't seem like he was ready to play for Green Bay. That's how I felt.
What was Jaire and his camp ever given the opportunity to counter what this Green Bay offer was that was clearly unattractive?
I know they didn't come back with anything. Once we sent it back, they didn't come back with anything.
So Landis, when it came to reconciliation, obviously, as Brad talked about, my co-host here, he discussed the fact that the Packers were open to trading Jaire. At what point was reconciliation something that was discussed, or have you guys been discussing a contract throughout the whole offseason?
Yeah, it was not very much conversation in the offseason when it came about. There was a bunch of kumbaya moments, and before they sent that contract over, I thought he was staying. People were asking me, I think we're staying in Green Bay. Once I guess the Buffalo situation didn't work out. But also, I want to just throw it out there that someone somewhere had leaked or alluded to the fact that they'd be willing to release him. If you do that, if I'm another team that is courting him in any way, why would I go and do a trade if I think there's any possibility that he's going to be released?
That's a great point. And another question, kind of as what Kyle was saying. So you said there were some kumbaya moments. I'm curious if those came after the draft, because it seemed to me that the Packers thought that maybe if we stockpile some more players at cornerback, maybe it'd be more palatable to let Jaire go if we feel like we can backlog it. It seemed to me that when the Packers, I don't think they drafted a cornerback until the 7th round. It feels like that's when, at least publicly, it started to hear that, the Packers and Jaire might actually reconcile this. Did you see a spike in interest after the draft when it looked like, oh my gosh, the Packers didn't actually draft anyone and they didn't have the opportunity to?
Well, there was more conversation. I mean, things. LaFleur reached out to him his birthday and things like that. He wasn't upset or angry with anybody. He wanted to come back too. I mean, like I was talking to people today, and they were like, "Well, he didn't really want to come back. He loved Green Bay. He loved the community. We had 3 properties in Green Bay. Like we were there. I thought that he was going to be there.
Love that.
And that's just to be clear. So it did pick up. His teammates, from my understanding, they all wanted him back. Right. That's how I've always looked at it. And again, Matt LaFleur reached out. They had conversations and things like that. I don't know. Somewhere somebody had a meeting and decided that this is what he's worth to us because we've given him so much and he's not played very much. And again, I get that part, but I don't like that. The narrative of that was put out there, like we didn't want to take a pay cut. Like that's just ridiculous. Because again, in business, you have to actually be available for these things. If you get 4 years, $84 million, I expect you to play. I mean, not half the season, not 75. I want you out there. Again, injuries happen, and he's not able to do that. We get the fact that you don't want to pay 17, but we definitely don't want 0, and we definitely don't want to. Okay, if you play this game, we're going to give you this, and there needed to be a base. There needed to be some sort of a guarantee of some part of that. Rather, it was $2 million or whatever, but there was no part of that was guaranteed, and there was no signing bonus. There was a bunch of roster bonuses all riddled through that contract. It was. Yeah. I looked at it, and it was like I felt insulted, and I know he doesn't really deal with that stuff. So that's the other thing about that is Jaire he wants to play football. That's it. He don't care about it. None of that other stuff. It's just about playing football. And if he could go, he's going to go. That's the other thing I would like to clear up with you, if that's okay. The people were like,
of course,
this injury last year, I guarantee you 100%, had they taken that injury seriously when it happened, he would have been back for the stretch of the season at the end. Because the PCL thing, they dealt with it. It was said that he would be back in 3 to 4 weeks or whatever. The problem with that was when that happened, he went back out there and tried to work and go, and he was cutting and he couldn't do something, and he was like, this hurts. I'm in pain right now and I can't do this thing. He tried to go out there with Chicago, same situation. And then they did the knee scope later, and they found a lot of stuff that he had injured before. There were old injuries in there that were keeping him from being able to do that. So had you scoped it 3-4 weeks prior to that, then he would have been back for you.
So why
if you had done IR from the beginning with
Landis, so that's my big question, is that it seemed like the Green Bay Packers were surprised when they found out that Jaire wasn't going to come back. So whose fault is that? Is that Jaire? Is that the team doctor? Because at some point, somebody has to be honest about how did Jaire all of a sudden go from about to play to having to be out for the season? It seemed like the Green Bay Packers painted the picture that it was more Jaire just not going out there and toughening through an injury.
And that's exactly. Those are the misnomers. I want to make sure that I clear that up. That wasn't the case. The situation was you probably should have taken it more serious from the beginning with it. He probably should have had a knee scope 3-4 weeks prior to that. During the time that they said it was the PCL, okay, PCL did heal. They were right about it. It was a torn PCL. It did heal in 3-4 weeks. The problem was the other stuff that was in there. And I have all the pictures of it and everything that they saw before and everything that they took out after the scope. So he really had a bigger problem than the PCL.
Yeah, Landis Alexander, Jaire's father, joining us here on Kyle Brust Nortman. And I will say I really appreciate you taking some time to share the insights from your perspective and Jaire's perspective. And it sounds like you've done your due diligence. Congratulations on a new opportunity for your son in Baltimore. Do you and Jaire have the December 27th date already circled on the calendar? Not as revenge, but as a fun opportunity to play against those that he is friends with and will look forward to competing with.
No, man, we love those guys. We love that team. We love that city, man. Nah, it's not that. We're going to play everybody the same. It's going to be hard. And the other biggest thing is that Green Bay let him go when he was feeling his best. I promise you that he is in better condition than he's been since 2018.
So y'all gonna make us pay? Wow. I hope not, right? That's not what you're saying.
I'm saying everybody should be on notice because you're gonna get your best version of him that he's been since he came to the league.
Okay, we're gonna see all pro Jaire. I love it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining.